Imagine a city just steeped in history. Thousands of years of it literally carved into the landscape around it. That's what we're diving into today. Hamadan in Iran.
Right. It was the very first capital of the Median Empire, which is just incredible to think about. And more recently, back in 2018, it was actually named Asia's tourism capital, so a place with real significance, both ancient and modern.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're looking at Hamadan province through, well, a few different lenses, aren't we? We've
Yeah.
got articles on its tourism potential, an environmental study about a local river, and some travel guides, too.
Yeah, a real mix. It gives us different angles, the natural resources, the history, the modern attractions. The idea is to pull out the key insights from all of them.
To really get a feel for why Hamadan is such a compelling place. So our mission, if you will, is to piece that together. Where should we start? Maybe the Abbasabad area.
Good place to start, yeah. The Abbasabad Tourism Complex, it's located up in Alvand, and the spot seems really deliberately chosen.
How so?
Well, they looked at things like the natural slope of the land, good for building, drainage, that sort of thing. Plus, it already had decent plant cover, and it wasn't too hard to get to. They really planned the site details around those existing features.
Okay, so working with the environment, not just bulldozing it, makes sense. And Abbasabad Hill itself is a big draw there.
Oh, definitely. It's a really popular spot for just relaxing, taking in the views. You get these amazing panoramic vistas over the Abbasabad Valley and Hamadan city itself.
I bet that's impressive.
Especially at night, apparently. It's become a real hub for recreation.
So it's more than just a nice viewpoint then. What else is there?
Yeah, much more. They've built this artificial lake, and there's actually a modern restaurant right in the middle of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, pretty unique, and you've got the practical stuff too, parking, places to stay. It's really been developed into a whole tourist complex.
And getting there, is it straightforward?
Seems like it. There are two main roads in. One starts near Badi Aram, the gardens, and the other comes off the beginning of the Ganjnameh Road. Supposedly well signed.
Good to know. You mentioned the plant cover earlier, how that was a factor. It's interesting that environmental thinking comes into play, even in tourism development.
Well, it's becoming more recognized, isn't it? The idea that using green architecture and keeping existing vegetation, especially in places like Abbasabad that see a lot of visitors and cars, it's actually important for cutting down on pollution.
Right, sustainable tourism.
It shows that kind of thinking is taking root, which is good to see.
A very important point. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. Let's talk about the Abbasabad River itself. One of our sources looked at its self-purification capacity. Sounds pretty technical.
It is quite detailed, yeah.
Uh,
They basically studied how well the river cleans itself naturally over two different stretches, one about 1.8 kilometers, the other longer, over 4 kilometers.
how do they measure that?
They use a computer model called QUL2KW. Think of it like a simulation tool. It tracks things like dissolved oxygen, that's DO, crucial for fish and stuff, and BOD and cascade, biochemical and chemical oxygen demand. Those tell you about organic pollution levels. And then specific nutrients, ammonia, nitrate, phosphate, NH4, NO3, PO4.
Wow, okay. A lot to track. So what's the verdict? Is the river doing a good job cleaning itself?
It's a bit of a mixed bag based on the study. On the plus side, DO levels went up by about 5% along the river, and nitrates increased 15%.
Okay.
And the water quality improved quite a bit regarding BOD and TD, down by 45%. Ammonia dropped significantly too, by 75%, and phosphate by 16%.
Those sound like pretty positive numbers. But you said mixed. What's the downside?
Well, yeah, they also figured out the maximum load the river could handle daily for each pollutant in those stretches. And the worrying part was the phosphate, the PO4. Its level was consistently above the standard for safe drinking water. They estimated it needs about a 36% reduction to meet that standard.
Right. That's definitely a red flag for water quality. Did the study explain why some parts might purify better?
It did. The first, shorter stretch showed a better self-purification capacity. The researchers think it's mainly due to better aeration, basically, more oxygen getting mixed into the water there compared to the second stretch.
Okay, so more oxygen helps break down the pollutants faster.
Exactly. That first stretch was particularly good at handling BOD, the organic waste. But the second stretch struggled more with FOD and nitrates. Those had the lowest self-purification rates there.
Interesting how it varies even within the same river. Okay, let's move to another major highlight, the Ganjnameh complex. This sounds like a place where history and nature really collide.
That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, it's in the Alvand Mountain, super popular. It's got this ancient history, beautiful scenery, and a load of modern recreational things to do.
The history part is the inscriptions, right? Tell us about those.
Yes, the Ganjnameh Inscriptions, they're from the Achaemenid period, think Darius the Great and Xerxes, carved right into the rock face. Yeah, in 3 languages. Old Persian, Babylonian, and Elamite, all using cuneiform script. They're just incredible historical documents right there.
Amazing. Just standing there for millennia.
Yeah.
And there's a waterfall nearby, too.
Yep, a 12-meter-high waterfall, pretty impressive sight. And apparently in winter, it can sometimes freeze over completely.
Whoa, an ice fall. That must be something else.
Yeah, nature putting on a show. But Ganjnameh isn't just history and scenery anymore. It's been developed quite a bit.
Right, you mentioned modern facilities. What kind of development?
Back in 2000, they turned it into a proper tourist village. It's huge now, can handle something like 5,000 visitors at once. And there's tons to do. Recreation, sports.
5,000 people. Okay, what sort of activities are we talking about?
Well, there's the telecabin, the cable car. It starts at the end of the Abbasabad Valley, about 5K from Hamedan city, takes you up the mountain.
Nice views, I bet.
Definitely. Then for the thrill seekers, you've got bungee jumping and a rail sled. It's like a 2-person toboggan on rails. Had a price listed for 2025, about 187,000 tomans per person then. There's also a zip line, they call it a flying Tyrol, and a big rock climbing wall 18 meters high near the telecabin station.
So plenty for active people.
Yeah, and they have routes for beginners and pros, instructors available too.
Anything a bit more unusual.
How about an aquarium cave?
Oh, what now?
Yeah. Apparently the first one in Iran, it's built over 2 floors, about 1,000 square meters. The first floor has like 21 tanks, saltwater, freshwater, lots of different fish and marine life.
Oh.
And the second floor has reptiles and other rare animals. Plus, inside it, there's also the Ganjnameh Salt Cave. They say the air in there is good for breathing problems.
An aquarium and a salt cave. That's certainly different. How do people get to Ganjnameh? Easy to find.
Sounds like it. Roads are signposted, and you drive through the Abbasabad Gardens area, which is nice and green. It's only about 5 kilometers from the city center, so you can easily grab a taxi.
Good tip.
Though they do warn you to be careful on the Ganjnameh Road in winter. Snow and ice can make it tricky.
Right. Standard mountain road advice. Now, I saw a mention of Dashti Mishan. What's that?
Ah, yes, Dashti Mishan. It's this lovely green plain, pretty high up, 2,700 meters on the northern side of Mount Alvand.
Okay.
It's popular for camping, and it's kind of a natural stop if you're hiking up to the Alvand Peak. You can hike there, or the telecabin gets you there too.
So it's like a base camp almost. Which brings us to Mount Alvand itself. Obviously a huge feature of the area.
Huge, yeah. It dominates the view south of Hamedan. Fun fact, though, the peak everyone calls Alvand isn't technically the highest point of the range.
Oh.
The actual highest is called Kole Yakhchal at 3,586 meters. The Alvand Peak itself is slightly lower, somewhere between 3,300 and 400 and 574 meters. The sources vary a bit. It used to be called Arvand, too.
Always good to get the local geography right.
Right.
So if you wanted to climb Alvand, what's the usual way up?
The common route starts from Ganjnameh. You go up through Hamedan Mishan, where that shelter is, and then Takhtinator and onto the peak.
How long does that take? How far is it?
It's about 4 kilometers distance-wise, but you gain a lot of height, nearly 2,200 meters. So timing varies a lot. Could be 4 hours for someone super fit, maybe 12 hours for others, or you can make it a 2-day trip.
Right. And best time to go?
Definitely spring and summer for most people. The weather's best then. Winter climbs are really only for very experienced mountaineers with the right gear.
Makes sense. I read something about a distinctive rock near the top.
Yeah, apparently from lower down to the northwest, you can see this rock peak that looks a bit like a lion. Sher means lion. The final bit of the climb actually goes through a rocky gap, a crevice.
And the reward at the top. The view.
Oh, spectacular by all accounts. You can see Hamedan, Tuyserkan, way out across the Zagros Mountains. Other peaks like Kolalan and Kizil Arslan. Must be breathtaking.
Sounds incredible. Are there facilities on the way up? You mentioned a shelter.
Yeah, there are. The main shelter at Hamedan Mishan is pretty well equipped. Water, electricity, heating, dorm beds, even a buffet. There's another shelter further up too, and a rescue base, which is important.
Good to know help is around. What about the nature on the mountain? Plants? Animals?
Yeah, quite diverse. Lots of alpine plants, obviously. And wildlife includes things like wolves, foxes, wild goats, eagles. Plus, there are several important springs along the route. Hazinabi, Takhtinator, Cheshma, vital water sources.
Essential for hikers. What about phone signal? Can you call for help if needed?
Surprisingly, yes. The sources say mobile coverage is pretty much complete along the whole main route. That's actually really good for safety.
That is reassuring. And even if you don't climb Alvand, you've still got Ganjnameh nearby, right?
Exactly. The inscriptions, the waterfall, the tourist village, all right there at the base. Lots to see and do without needing mountaineering gear.
It really feels like that whole Alvand area is a major asset. And the mountain itself has national recognition.
It does. Mount Alvand was added to Iran's list of natural heritage sites back in 2011. So yeah, officially recognized for its importance.
Okay, so zooming out a bit, it's pretty clear Hamedan province has a ton of potential for tourism. Our sources seem to agree on that.
They really hammer that point home. You know, despite all this history, the great location, all these attractions we've talked about, the feeling is that only a small percentage of its tourism potential is actually being tapped into right now.
That is surprising, given everything it offers. But it is ranked pretty highly within Iran, isn't it?
It is. It's apparently the fourth most popular destination in the country. Draws about 2 million tourists a year, both Iranians and foreigners. A lot of that seems driven by the ecotourism appeal and the fact it has 4 distinct seasons.
Right, something different to offer year-round. And its location helps, too.
Hugely. It sits right at a crossroads. You've got the main highway from Tehran towards Kermanshah and the Iraqi border, plus main roads linking Tehran to Sanandaj and Kermanshah to Elam passing through or nearby. It's just geographically well-positioned.
Our sources talk about primary and secondary tourism elements. Can you break that down?
Sure. It's a standard way of looking at it. Primary elements are the main pull factors, the things people actually come to see or do. So historical sites, natural wonders like Alvand or Alice Adder Cave, cultural events.
Okay. The attractions themselves.
Exactly. Secondary elements are the support system, the infrastructure and services, hotels, restaurants, transport links, tourist information, guides, all the things that make the trip possible and pleasant. You need both for a successful tourism industry.
And Hamedan seem to have potential in many different types of tourism, too.
Yeah, the World Tourism Organization categories get mentioned. Hamedan ticks a lot of boxes. Cultural tourism, obviously huge. Natural tourism with the mountains and caves. Commercial tourism because it's a regional center. Religious tourism, even sports tourism.
There's others, too.
Yeah, they also specifically call out ecotourism, rural tourism, visiting villages, and health tourism as having potential.
Let's touch on a few of those. Historical and cultural seem like the big ones.
Absolutely dominant. There are over 850 registered historical and cultural sites in the province. And one source said 88%, almost 9 out of 10 tourists come primarily for that reason. Cities like Hamedan itself, Malayer, Tuyserkan, Nahavand, they have incredibly long histories.
And for nature lovers. We've touched on Alvand and the caves.
Right. Beyond those, there are other mountains, lots of springs, rivers, protected wildlife areas, and just generally beautiful landscapes across the province. Plenty for outdoor enthusiasts.
What about religious tourism? You mentioned that.
Yes, that's significant too. There are several important religious sites and shrines in the province that attract pilgrims and visitors seeking spiritual experiences. It's an interesting mix of tourists and pilgrim motivation sometimes.
And trade. Markets.
Hamedan's role as a trading center goes way back. It was on ancient routes. And its traditional bazaar, which dates mainly from the Qajar era, is apparently still very much alive and kicking, a real hub of activity.
That sounds fascinating to visit. I also read about handicrafts being important.
It's very important. Hamedan province ranks second in Iran for the sheer variety of its handicrafts. The pottery and ceramics from a town called Lalajin are particularly famous nationally and internationally.
Right. Malaysian pottery.
Yeah. And historically, Hamedan was also known for leather production. That tradition still exists to some extent.
It sounds like there's a real effort to keep these crafts alive. What about getting out into the countryside, the villages?
Rural tourism is seen as a big opportunity, a way to bring economic benefits and development to the villages while offering visitors an authentic experience. Places like Kaku, Varkane, and Abru are mentioned as examples of villages with tourism potential.
And for more standard fun and recreation.
Plenty of that, too. There's the Ganjnameh amusement park we mentioned, another park called Iram, even a traffic education park for kids. And Abbasabad Hill is highlighted again for its nice climate, especially from late spring to autumn. Plus, the Ganjnameh telecabin for easy mountain access.
We also mentioned sports tourism potential.
Right. The mountains make it great for hiking and climbing. The Ganjnameh Waterfall area is specifically mentioned for rock climbing. There's fishing potential. And the Alvand ski resort for winter sports.
And even Medical tourism.
Yeah, it gets a mention. It's seen as having potential, but maybe not generating as much income currently as it could.
So loads of potential across the board.
Mm.
But are there challenges, weak spots?
Oh, definitely. The sources point out several areas needing improvement. Things like needing better long-term planning for tourism development. Infrastructure, upgrades, transport, utilities are crucial. Maintaining the historical sites properly is another big one. And just doing a better job with advertising and providing clear information and guidance for tourists once they arrive.
All sounds pretty fundamental for growing tourism sustainably.
Right.
Okay, one last, quite different point from our sources, something about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, a brief mention, but interesting. The local water and wastewater company in Hamedan has started using AI in their customer contact center.
Really?
They piloted it in September 2023. It's being used to analyze how well their staff are performing when dealing with customers. And the idea is, potentially, it could even automate some responses in the future.
Wow. So even in this ancient region, they're looking at cutting-edge tech for customer service.
Exactly. It kind of highlights that dynamic tension, doesn't it? Deep history alongside modern innovation.
It really does. Well, this deep dive has certainly painted a picture of Hamadan province as just an incredibly rich place, this amazing blend of ancient roots, stunning nature, and developing modern attractions.
Absolutely. And we really encourage you, our listeners, to maybe dig a bit deeper yourselves, look into some of those archaeological sites we mentioned, picture those mountain trails, explore the cultural traditions online. It's a fascinating region.
It truly is. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. When you consider Hamadan's incredibly deep history, side by side with these pushes in tourism and even AI,
Yeah.
what kind of role do you think a place like this will play in Amran's future, balancing that cultural preservation with, innovative progress, something to mull over?